welcome to the Conservation Lands Foundation's media briefing. This briefing's on the most recent congressional power grab for public lands. And hi, I'm Chris Deutschman. I'm the Chief Communications Officer with the Conservation Lands Foundation. And as you may know, our organization represents a nonpartisan national network of community advocates solely focused on the public lands overseen by the Bureau of Land Management. We have a lineup of 5 speakers today who will speak for a few minutes each on the specific implications. So I would like to invite David Feynman, the Vice President of Government Affairs with the Conservation Lands Foundation, to start us off with what's happened and what it means for public lands. David.
Thank you, Chris, and thanks to all of you for joining. Yesterday, Senator Mike Lee of Utah read into the congressional record an opinion from the Government Accountability Office saying the management plan for the Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument in Utah is considered a rule under the Congressional Review Act, or CRA. This action will allow for the introduction of a resolution of disapproval to revoke the Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument 2025 management plan, and such a resolution gets expedited consideration and only requires a simple majority vote in both chambers. In recent months, Congress has weaponized the CRA to overturn public lands management plans and decisions across tens of millions of acres from Alaska to Montana and Wyoming, upending the long-standing rules for public lands management. Now, Congress is raising the stakes even further, using the CRA to attack some of America's most iconic landscapes, most recently the Boundary Waters in Minnesota, and now the Grand Staircase. The CRA was meant as a tool to review major regulations, not a veto power Congress can use to throw out every public lands decision it doesn't like. But that's exactly how it's being used, marking a dangerous escalation in congressional attacks on public lands. Resource management planning is required by law and critical for balancing the many uses the BLM must consider for these public lands, from recreation to nature conservation to cultural preservation to extractive uses. The finalized plans reflect BLM's transparent and comprehensive planning process that included the public's participation and thus reflects the diverse needs and interests of the American people. They include thoughtful engagement with the general public, tribes and local governments, and industry representatives. Instead of allowing for a transparent planning framework to play out, the CRA imposes a top-down political veto. The result is chaos. It wipes out the stable rules of the road that communities and stakeholders rely on, from recreation businesses, guides, hunters and anglers, and ranchers, to local governments and even energy companies seeking certainty, replacing long-term management with uncertainty, conflict, and instability for everyone. CRA disapproval doesn't just overturn a single plan or decision. It creates a chilling effect on management of our entire public lands. If carefully developed, science-based decisions can be so casually tossed aside, it raises a fundamental question: why invest in long-term planning for any of our public lands at all? The consequence is that basic common sense safeguards, clean drinking water, wildfire risk reduction, protection of cultural resources, big game habitat, and public safety become political footballs. And once this tactic is normalized, it won't stop with a few high-profile places. It puts public land stewardship nationwide at risk by making every land use plan politically vulnerable. This CRA escalation does not stand alone. It aligns with a broader agenda to weaken public lands governance from the inside out. Alongside efforts to defund public lands agencies, including the BLM, drive out career civil servants, and undermine the capacity to manage and protect public lands, weaponizing the CRA becomes another tool to destabilize stewardship. The end result is predictable: increased pressure to privatize and renewed momentum to sell off America's public lands. Chris?
Great. Thank you, David. Next, I would like to invite Autumn Gillard with the Grand Staircase-Escalante Intertribal Coalition Coordinator on the implications to tribes. Autumn?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. So I would first like to just start off and acknowledge that this wonderful landscape that we are speaking about today, the Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument, is home to many Indigenous people and is a part of our larger cultural landscape. And so the news that have came up, are very alarming to us. So we as members of the Grand Staircase-Escalante Intertribal Coalition strongly oppose any attempt to use the Congressional Review Act to overturn the 2025 Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument Resource Management Plan. We urge Congress to vote no on any resolution of disapproval expected from Utah's congressional delegation. The resource management plan finalized in January 2025, after 2 years of public input and tribal consultation, provides critical protections for cultural sites, sacred places, petroglyphs, springs, plants, and animals. Coalition members like myself, I have emphasized that using procedural shortcuts to dismantle the plan undermines responsible stewardship and tribal governments. Dismantling this plan threatens our ancestral lands and sacred sites. We urge lawmakers from both sides of the aisle to please uphold the approved 2025 resource management plan. Without this plan, important cultural, ecological resources within the monument faced increased risk of looting, vandalism, degradation, and the coalition calls on Congress to safeguard the plan that tribes helped shape. I would also like to mention that many years of tribal consultation was held with the United States federal government on this process, working through the resource management plan, that the prior plan in 2022 did not advocate strongly to integrate the viewpoint of tribal nations. And it is the responsibility, the federal trust responsibility of the United States federal government to consult with affiliated tribes on matters that affect our cultural landscape. And so we as a coalition, again, are reaching out to our colleagues back in Washington, D.C. to please hear our voices and to take a moment to consult with us in a bipartisan way. Thank you.
Thank you, Autumn. I would next like to invite Jackie Grant, who's the Executive Director of the Grand Staircase-Escalante Partners, to speak to the local impacts.
Thanks, Chris. My organization represents over 5,000 public land supporters who have a specific interest in the Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument and its management. As a friends group, we are the nonprofit that brings volunteers to the monument to steward, restore, and engage in science that improves the monument for all users. The monument was designated to preserve public access to national treasures that include an incredible variety of plants and animals, fossils that tell the story of life on Earth, and opportunities to view a truly dark night sky and the Milky Way, which only 20% of Americans are now able to see because of light pollution. The monument also provides opportunities for Americans to use their public lands for recreation, connecting to the past, and many other activities that are described in the existing resource management plan. We oppose the use of the Congressional Review Act as a tool to amend land management plans because it eliminates the public's voice. It's a colossal waste of taxpayer dollars, and it sets off a domino effect of chaos across all of our public lands. I look forward to answering questions at the end of this session. Thanks.
Thanks, Jackie. I next would like to introduce a local business owner, Nathan Wagoner. He's the owner of Escalante Outfitters and board chair of the Grand Staircase Regional Guide Association. Nate?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Yes, so I am a business owner in Escalante, Utah, one of the gateway communities to Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument. We've been operating our business there for 22 years. I'm also a guide on the National Monument as well. I guide natural history tours as well as guided fly fishing on the National Monument. And as the chairman for the Grand Staircase Regional Guide Association, our association provides a voice for the professional guiding community working in the Grand Staircase region. We advocate, promote, and protect the interest of our recreational permit holders on Grand Staircase. So with 22 years of owning a business and operating a guide service and a lodge, we've made long-term investments in our community, and we've made substantial financial decisions, assuming that our land use plans will be there and in effect for the future. Having our land use plans destroyed or taken away by the Congressional Review Act throws all of those investments and all of that, that planning that we've made into chaos. And it also throws into question whether or not our permits are allowed out on the national monument as well. Many of the local guides that live in the communities along the gateway of Grand Staircase hold permits for over 10 years. And we need those long-term permits so we can continue to make long-term financial investments in our communities. Using the CRA to destroy our current RMP would not only compromise our investments, but also negate a lot of discussion and planning that was taken place with the BLM. That both my organization, just as Autumn has spoken about before, we all come together and we coordinate on how to create these management plans. We kind of take part in the recreation side of things, and then we also coordinate with different members of the tribe. So when we're guiding, we're looking after each other when we're out there on the land. It's a really unique opportunity that only can happen in a management plan. If Congress takes those opportunities away from us, those discussions become obsolete, and they just take the power in their own hands to create these management plans. So we really would hope that Congress would not suppress all the voices of our local community and negate the hard work that goes into the planning efforts that go into a management plan. There are ways to amend a management plan, and we encourage people to do so whenever they have issues. But to completely use the Congressional Review Act to destroy a management plan is not the process. It sets a very, very horrible precedent for the future for all of our public lands, not just the places that we live, love, and operate on. Thank you very much, Chris.
Great. Thank you, Nate. I next would like to bring up our final speaker, Todd Tucci, Senior Attorney with Advocates for the West.
Hi, everybody. Todd Tucci here. I just wanted, before I get into the local and national implications of using the CRA in this manner, I think I just want to amplify for a moment kind of the unprecedented nature of these attacks. I mean, David said that they're weaponizing the CRA in a way that was never imagined. In fact, it's never been done before. The CRA has never been used to undermine and revoke a monument management plan. CRA came about in 1996, so we're now 30 years on, and we're starting to see an escalation of the use of the CRA. It completely eliminates local input. You know, the adoption of the MMP that we're talking about, there were 11 public hearings. There were 7,000 public comments submitted. The agency took into effect the testimony and the comments and came up with a middle-of-the-road monument management plan that met everybody's needs. And now what we're doing is we're throwing that out and elevating the Congress people and the senators as the decision makers on what happens on public lands in America's backyard. And this is effectively legislative Russian roulette with a gun pointed to the head of America's public lands. This is not how to manage our public lands. And now for the local kind of implications. You heard Autumn and Jackie and Nathan speak about this, but let's just be clear. It eliminates protections on over 862,000 acres in Grand Staircase-Escalante National Monument. This is not this is the crown jewels of the American public lands. This is America's backyard. And as Nathan says, it undermines the permitting. It's going to throw permitting both in terms of recreational but industrial uses and grazing. It's going to throw that up in the air. It's going to be complete chaos. But that's just the local implications. The national implications are where this gets really scary. Because this isn't just about the southeast corner of Utah. Congress is breaking the system of public lands management wholeheartedly. There's 12 resource management plans in Arizona that can get thrown out tomorrow. There's 14 in California and 13 in Colorado. So this is not about 2 million acres in southeast Utah only. This is about the national implications. This potentially impacts every inch of public lands. It impacts your favorite watering hole, your favorite fishing hole. It has potential impacts for your favorite hunting ground, where you walk your dog, where you take your kids hiking. This undermines localized protections for the landscapes that America cares about. It undermines America's backyard. So I just want to be clear, there's not an inch of public lands that is safe. And remember what David said. This action does not stand alone. This is part of a playbook. I'm a sports fan. I use sports metaphors. We're in the second inning. In the first inning, Representative Maloy and Senator Lee raised the ire of the American public, not just conservationists, recreationists, tribal interests. When they tried to sell off the public lands, they got slapped back and slapped back pretty hard. This is the second inning, and they're going to keep coming. So we have to show them from a factual perspective, from a legal perspective, and from a public perspective, this is undoable, unallowable. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Todd. And thanks all the speakers. I'll remind everyone, all of our participants, if you have questions, to drop them in the Q&A box, or you can raise your hand and we can unmute you. I have a couple of questions here to get started. And Todd, it's maybe piggybacking on what you just ended with in terms of like next steps, the recourse. How does movements like this get stopped?
Well, I'm a lawyer, and the law is the last bastion of defense against arbitrary decision making. So there will be opportunities to engage from the legal front, but really I'm going to hand this off to David because the fight here is with congressional action, and that's going to require citizen engagement. So David, I'm going to hand that to you.
Yeah, I would say there's how the recourse for this particular resolution, and then there's the broader issue around the Congressional Review Act. The recourse for this resolution, as we've seen with a few others relating to resource management plans, is people calling their congressmen and urging them to vote no on the resolution. And while others, including the Boundary Waters resolution, have passed the House, the margins were close. Both chambers are close margins. The House is 1 or 2 votes. So, members of Congress hearing from people of all walks of life who care about these places, not just people from Utah. It's important that Congress hear that this is something the people do not want, because we know that that's the case by all polling about support for public lands. The broader recourse, and I'm not suggesting this Congress is in a position politically to do this, but at some point, Congress needs to fix the Congressional Review Act to clarify what a rule is under the law and what their original intent was. And by everything that's happened up until, or not happened up until this Congress chose to make use of it in this way, it's pretty clear the intent was not for it to be used in this way. But the law would need to be amended to change that. So lobbying by constituents and other interests who understand that the chaos that will unfold will affect everybody and every sector of the economy that's impacted by public lands is needed. And broader public pressure and media exposure of this problem is what needs to happen in the next few weeks as we expect the resolution to be introduced any day. And then there's a tight turnaround when this could move forward.
Okay, very good. Thank you, David. Thanks to all of our guests today and everyone participating and hopefully giving good coverage to this important topic for the future of our public lands and everybody here in the country who enjoys them. We'll be following up with all of you who are participating with contact information for our speakers if you'd like to follow up with them directly. And feel free to reach out to me, to the Conservation Lands Foundation, with any follow-up questions or clarifications. Okay, appreciate it. Have a good day. Bye-bye.